Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some I Don't Work Here Lady. Our first story today comes to us from Damien St. James. Wholesome, despite not being an employee, gave an elderly man A+ service. Let's jump right in. Today is my husband Randy's birthday. I had pre-ordered his birthday cake from the Fred Meyer Bakery. After checking in with the awesome staff of the bakery, I picked up a couple of other purchases, went through checkout, and was on my way out the door. And that's when I saw him. He was a man I'd say between 70-80 years old. He had that slight hunch where while standing straight, his head was still bowed at a near permanent 45-degree angle. His hair was short, business appropriate, dress shirt, tie, belt, khakis, and dress slacks worn with contemporary glasses. It didn't take me long to work out that this was a man whom likely, at many points in his life, worked in business, likely a manager or even a business owner. The man was crying, like soft sniffles and tears running down his face. If I've not mentioned, in the late 1980s, my mom and dad divorced and mom got a job at a nursing home. So from the time I was 5 to my mid-20s, I spent a good amount of time volunteering my time there, and eventually working in an official capacity as a dietitian and caregiver. So, naturally, I feel a very good-natured urge to be helpful, or at the very least, observant and mindful. Before I could utter a word, he approached me first. Through slight sobs and with a pained voice that was saturated with distress, worry, and despair, he weakly asked, "Excuse me, sir, I'm ever so sorry to bother you. I'm just so lost. I don't know where anything is. I've never been in here before, and everything's just gone so wrong today. I've been walking around for nearly an hour, and you're the first employee I've seen. Can you please help me?" I should note here, or restate for people whom have followed my stories, that I am often out and about in my high-visibility reflective safety vest. Like the kind road workers or construction workers wear, mine is virtually identical in every way to Fred Meyer vests that have the trolley boys and maintenance workers wear. So I get mistaken for an employee pretty much every single time I go in there. I wear my Gay Pride event San Francisco 49ers baseball cap, my glasses, safety vest, short sleeve khaki shirt, and either black jeans or tan khakis with my boots. So it's not unreasonable for someone to assume I work there just on a casual glance. Also, I used a trained English accent when I'm out and about, since the locals treat me better due to implicit bias. This was a genuine, earnest plea for help. I felt sad just listening to him all but beg for help. I had no intent of making his day worse by telling him I didn't work there, so I nodded to him. "Sir, I'd be more than happy to help. I'm so very sorry nobody got to you earlier. I'm fairly sure you only had the misfortune of walking past people and you just not seeing one another. Regardless, how can I help?" The kind old man said that first he wanted a new pair of men's pajamas. He said that his old pair got ruined that morning and he needed a new pair before bed. I told him rather than just tell him where they were, I'd push my chair right to them and he only need to but follow me. So I led him to the section full of flannels, bathrobes, PJs, and all that jazz. Curiously, he asked me my advice on what I think was more comfortable. I advised the flannels since he was and is in the Pacific Northwest, and winter was on its way. He agreed, he thanked me, then asked if I could then show him where the flashlight bulbs were. Fortunately, I did know just where they were. I told him that we could kill two birds with one stone. He seemed to have difficulty walking, and I am in a wheelchair, so if he pushed my chair and used the handholds, he'd effectively have use of a walker, and I get pushed where we need to go. He seemed to cheer up and said that's the kind of thinking that would have gone far in his old business. I guide him and chat with him all the way to the home and garden section. I listen to every little thing he has to say. I react and comment when appropriate. He seemed to cheer up and open up to me. Unbeknownst to me, we were being followed. This becomes important not long from now. So when we get to the bulbs, he describes his flashlight to me. Believe it or not, I knew just the flashlight he had. It was those silver metal kinds, very often used by theater ushers, that kind of resemble a lightsaber from Star Wars. I asked when it was made, and he told me he bought it in 1965. I grimaced and explained that most of these bulbs, while they'd fit, wouldn't necessarily be compatible. I recommended an inexpensive but very powerful flashlight my husband uses for his security guard job. I have to admit, I was only briefly afraid about revealing my sexuality to the man, but saying husband is so common for me to say I don't think about it. Then I remembered, duh, I have a pride flag on my hat. The man asked about how long I'd been married, and we made small talk about that as another sales rep got the flashlight out of the case. The man and I roll and walk, as it were, to the checkout aisle. Owen, the observant checkout guy from my previous story, came over to handle much of the physical part of the ring-up. He cashes out, and then we're back where we started. The man breaks down and cries again, which honestly started to make me cry a little. I asked what was wrong. He told me he knew I was probably off work and on my way out the door. He saw the birthday cake and heard me mention my husband. He did the mental math long before and figured I was there to pick up my husband's cake and was leaving when he stopped me. He said he felt so bad that he made me help him when clearly I had somewhere to be. And this is where I did shed some tears. I'm real empathetic. I said, my husband would be more upset at me if I saw a person whom was genuinely in need and just rolled on without a care. He will understand and not be mad at all. It's basic human decency, sir. The absolute right thing to do. And helping a person out by giving them kindness is never an imposition on me. The man held out his hand and I shook it. Briefly, he cupped his second hand on mine and he sobbed out a thank you. He said, God bless me, and may my husband's birthday be a blessed one as well. I wiped my tears from my own eyes and I said I hoped everything got better. With that, the man began the slow task of walking out the exit. That was when I became aware of people standing around me. I turned around and there were 4 female employees that I knew and knew me. The eldest of the group, let's call her Marge, approaches. Marge tells me she knows I don't work there, but for me to do that was the kindest act of selflessness she'd seen in ages. The younger women agreed. I thanked them and reaffirmed what I said. I told them about working with the elderly, dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, and so forth. It's just decency, good manners, and part of what we all should do. They asked if they could hug me, respecting social distancing and my space, given what had happened too recently where a Karen grabbed my chair without permission. I accepted and they all gave me hugs. Marge asked if I'm looking for a job. I blinked and said I'd not considered it due to my condition of being in a wheelchair 90% of my day. Marge said that if I ever wanted to apply and she was still working there, she'd give me the best recommendation she could. The other 3 girls agreed. I, in turn, thanked them, checked my watch, and realized I was indeed quite late. I said my farewells, put my stuff in the car, and drove home. I've gotta say, I'm recording this one at midnight, and I'm kinda wondering why my wife's cutting onions in the house right now, because that's the only reason for the tear that's showing up in my eyes, right? It's not too often we get an absolutely wholesome story here on the KCC channel, and I'm really thankful that we do get them every once in a while, because it reminds us that there are actually good people out there, and not everything is completely revenge-based. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. That being said, our next story today comes to us from MET. Yes, I'm Chinese, but that doesn't mean I work here. Let's jump right in. So this story didn't happen to me, nor was I a part of it. I told some friends I reopened my Reddit, and my friend Annie gave me permission to share her story. So for some background, Annie is a friend of mine whom I met in college. We share classes together. She moved here from China not too long ago, and this story takes place about 6 months after she moved. I say moved, but she's here on a temporary student green card. She's incredibly smart, hardworking, and witty. Just a few of the many things I love about her. She's also a ridiculously good cook and oftentimes makes me some delicious traditional Chinese recipes. Well, while there are many things she loves about the United States, one of her biggest pet peeves is our food industry. Too much grease and not enough actual food, which is why she doesn't usually eat out. Her greatest pet peeve of all is American Chinese food. It should be illegal, which I agree with. I've gotten food poisoning from Chinese takeout more times than I can count. Well, in our area, there's this really cute, authentic Chinese restaurant. The restaurant owner emigrated from China in the late 80s with his family and brought with him all his recipes that have been in his family for years. The restaurant is very popular in our community, and he's doing very good for himself and his family. He's also super friendly and loves to chat with his customers, whom are mostly Chinese immigrants like himself. Annie loves the place because it reminds her of home, and it tastes like real food we have back at home. Well, one afternoon, Annie and another friend of hers, Liv, decide to treat themselves and eat out. And on this particular afternoon, the restaurant was more busy than usual. It's a small place, so not a lot of seating options when it's a full house. One of the waiters asked her if she and her friend wouldn't mind splitting one of the big round tables with a family, mother, father, and their 2 teenage daughters. They agreed because it was a school night and the waiting time was long. Didn't want to stay out later than they had to. While the waiter was showing them to their table, he was called away, but told Annie and Liv to continue and seat themselves. They had been there quite often and could easily find their way. The table was also big and was the first one you saw when you walked in, so it really wasn't a hassle. Now for a bit more detail, Annie was wearing black, which were the employee colors, but she was clearly not wearing a waitressing outfit. She was wearing a cute black sundress, while her friend Liv, who is American by the way, was wearing some fancy burgundy trousers and a matching top. Both of them were clearly not employees. When they both arrived at the table and took a seat, the mom, before either of them could explain the situation, exclaimed, "Finally, we've been waiting a while to give our orders, but our stupid waiter has been too busy running around. I swear he's doing it on purpose." Caught off guard and a bit shocked, both Annie and Liv just kinda stared at the woman, then each other. I'm afraid we're ready to order now. I've also never heard of a waiter sitting down to take orders. It comes across very disrespectful." Annie looked at the woman even more confused, and she and one of the daughters spoke at the same time. "Mom, I don't think she works here." "Ma'am, I don't work here." "Nonsense, look at her outfit. Are you gonna take our order or what? Do you not speak English, or do I need to speak Chinese?" Quick narrator note, I refuse to read the next line because it is mocking a Chinese accent and it's something I would never do. But it basically says, "I want to order please, get your paper out and take our order." Just in not so nice terms. "Honey," the husband bravely tried to intervene. "Please stop, she clearly doesn't work here." "Of course she does. She's Chinese, isn't she? And she's wearing black. Take our order." The woman sitting to the right of Liv, who was sitting between her and Annie, reaches over her and snaps twice in Annie's face. "Don't make me repeat myself. I'll get the owner involved." The snapping is what threw Annie over the edge. She kind of aggressively slaps the woman's hand out of her face. She continued her snapping. "Just because I'm Chinese doesn't mean I work here. My friend and I are here to eat. And don't ever do that fake crap to anyone you may suspect is Chinese again. It's extremely offensive." "Excuse me? Who do you think you are? That is assault and I'll get you fired, or worse, arrested. Now leave before I call the cops and tell the owner I'd like a word with him. I'm sure he'd love to know that one of his employees assaulted a customer." "Hey, crazy. My friend doesn't work here." Liv and Annie shared another look, one that clearly read, "This chick's crazy for some hands." "Yeah, Mom, she doesn't work here." "All of you shut it, you!" The woman points a stern finger at Annie, as if she's about to ground her for life. "Get out of my sight and get the effing owner or manager. I don't care who at this point. Just get someone and leave." "Again, ma'am, I don't work here." As Annie says this, Liv gets up to find the waiter and explain the situation. When she arrives back with said waiter, it's to the scene of the woman standing up, leaning over Annie, while loudly spitting racial slurs at her. Excuse me, ma'am, what seems to be the problem?" The question was directed at Annie, but crazy mom interrupts. "She refused to take our order, assaulted me, and has treated me and my family very disrespectfully. I would like to have a word with the owner." At this point, the woman's husband and 2 daughters look extremely embarrassed and have some variation of their hand on their face, looking anywhere but up. The waiter very calmly looks between the woman and Annie. "Ma'am, if you couldn't tell, she doesn't work here. She's a customer, and I asked her to split this table with you as we don't have enough seating space at the moment." "Don't play games with me, boy. I know for a fact she does indeed work here." "No, I can assure you she doesn't. I know all my employees. She is not one of them." During Crazy Woman's rant, she failed to notice that the owner had strolled over to investigate all the commotion. Before she can say anything back, the owner has a conversation with Annie in Chinese where the situation is explained. The woman finally realizes her mistake and turns pale white. trying to explain herself, stammering along the way. Well, you see, I could have sworn. The rest of the table explained what happened, and without missing a beat, the owner kindly tells the woman and her family that they must leave. Annie and Liv were moved to a more private table, and they got a free meal that night. They continue to eat there till this day. I've even been myself. The woman, as far as Annie knows, hasn't shown up since. Ah yes, Karen, let's just embarrass your whole family in front of a whole restaurant full of people. Although with an attitude like that, I'm sure it's not the first time they've been embarrassed, and it probably won't be the last either. It was great to hear that the restaurant owner comped the meal for OP's friends. At least for them, some good came out of this story. Our last story today comes to us from ZZYZX, the Summoner. You're really just going to stand there? Let's jump right in. I'm from South Louisiana, and we have a different way of interacting with people that differs even from other southern states. I'm sure people know about Southern hospitality, but South Louisiana cranks this up to 11. Ask anyone who has ever been there. We don't care about race, religion, social, or economic status. If you're human, you are owed to be treated with kindness and empathy until you prove otherwise. I left Baton Rouge and moved to Katy, Texas for a teaching gig. It was a Sunday, and I had to run to the Texas-only big grocery chain to get a few things. Sunday was a big shopping day, and the place was packed, with long lines waiting to check out. I walked to the closest line with my few groceries in my arms. This was before the prominence of self-checkout, so no matter how much or how little you bought, there was going to be a wait. It's just how things were, no biggie. The lady in front of me had to be in her 80s and not more than 95 pounds. Her buggy was absolutely filled to the top. The people in front of her were almost done checking out when I saw her struggling to pick up a bag of frozen chicken to place on the conveyor. She struggled again with another item, and another, and another. The cashier started ringing her up and simply stared at her with impatience while this poor old woman struggled with removing items from her buggy. I was like, WTF? I looked around and everyone was sighing with annoyance and impatience. The bagger, the cashier, the people behind me. Seriously? I placed my items down on a nearby drink refrigerator and asked the lady if she needed any help. With a brightness and joy in her eyes, she answered, "Please." I unloaded her buggy onto the conveyor and placed the bag groceries back in as the bagger handed them to me. I was finished in no time, smiled at the lady, picked my items back up, and got back in line behind her. She paused for a moment. Evidently, she had been so flustered with trying to place her groceries on the conveyor, she had never noticed me behind her. "Wait, you don't work here?" "No, ma'am. Just thought you might appreciate a little help." She then gave me the biggest hug, and with tears in her eyes, she said, Thank you so much." I smiled again and told her, "You're welcome." I followed her out to her vehicle and helped her load everything. She thanked me again and told me she dreaded going to the grocery store because it was so difficult for her, and people were always getting frustrated with her when it came to checking out. I shook my head. That is sad. I'm sorry about that. Back home, stuff like that doesn't happen. If someone needs help, we help them. She started to tear up again, hugged me, and thanked me. I told her to have a nice day and headed back to my truck. Wait a minute, what's going on here? 2 feel-good stories in one video with an entitled Karen in the middle? What? I just want to mention again that every once in a while it's really nice to get away from the revenge stories and read something that makes your heart feel warm. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.